Welcome back to another episode of Life Chats with Friends. So stoked to have Winston Thompson with us today. Winston, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks so much for having me, Antonio. I'm glad we could finally do this.
Yes.
I'm good.
How have you been?
I've been so good. I just moved, so everything is in my life is all over the place right now, but we're getting back to grounding and getting into a flow and a routine, so I'm doing great.
What's it been like being on your own or kind of like in your new space?
Well, I just got a couch today, so I'm feeling like a lot homier. So I have somewhere to sit, which is nice other than my bed. Yeah, it's so good. I love living alone. My job is so many people and so much energy and so much like kind of me getting pulled all over the place. So it's so nice to just have a place where I can just be and I don't have to like interact or
decompress.
Yes.
Perfect. So, Winston, I would love to tell everyone a little bit more about you, and then I will pitch it to you to share a bit more. But for everyone listening, Winston is a visionary in the world of beauty, color, and connection with over a decade at the helm of his own salon. He is a master colorist, educator, and creative consultant, a soulful explorer who brings a unique blend of artistry, curiosity, and compassion to the world of beauty and beyond. Driven by a profound desire to spread love and joy, Winston's goal is clear: to make a positive impact wherever he goes. His approach and ability to warmth make him not just a hairstylist, but a trusted confidant on the journey of self-discovery. Winston, once again, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit more about you.
I've been in the DC area my whole life. I grew up in Northern Virginia. I lived in LA for a little bit, but I have mostly been here. I own a salon. I do hair full time.
And so good at it. I feel like everyone in this sphere that I talk to that's like, oh, Winston did my hair, they're just like, oh yeah, like Winston did my hair.
One day I'm gonna do some color on your tips.
Yes. In the queue. So yeah, what's your story? What's your background? Who are you?
Oh my God, the question of who I am is such a loaded question for me, and I feel like I don't have the answer of like who I am, because I have learned that it's not like what you do and how you are, but it's so much deeper than that. So I am on this sort of discovery of trying to figure out who I am. But I guess it's been a journey more so over the last like maybe 6 years or so of like realizing that I have no idea who I am, and then trying to dig and figure out why, and then kind of like pull those strings and kind of like start questioning, you know, the way that I respond, the way that I think, the way that I act, realizing how much I doubt myself, and just sort of like unraveling it and following it back to like where it started from, and kind of like getting into that story of me.
Talk to me a little bit more about childhood. Like, what are the experiences that have shaped your worldviews, or like when I am around you and when I see other people around you, the way they experience you, I'm like, how do you become this beacon of light in your expression?
That's sweet. I grew up, I think, through my childhood in like with my mother, single mother, 3 siblings, and it was a very like loving, nurturing, creative. You know, my mom, you know, she had a lot to support with just herself, and she pushed us to like perform and create and dance and sing and just, you know, create this like warm home environment where we all kind of connected. And I think that that's kind of like what created my shape and like molded me. And then when kind of religion got introduced to it, that became my whole life and my mom's life. And it was going well, I think, until I started realizing that maybe there was something different about me. And I think when I started kind of pulling at that and questioning, I realized very quickly that that wasn't, you know, I realized that my sexuality wasn't up for question. You know, I wasn't allowed to question. If I remember my first thought was like, wow, this guy's legs look cool. It like look nice. And I remember telling my mom that, and she was like, I don't ever want to hear that again. But I went into ministry school to be a youth pastor. I was told my whole life I had a calling on my life to like teach and grow people. And so I went to school for that. And then I kind of like went through conversion therapy at a certain point. And while I was finishing up ministry school, and I think that was sort of like at a certain point when that was really heavy and it was really intense. I think there was like this big like schism. What's it called when you have like a severance? Anyways, a separation from everything, you know, my first 18 years of life, essentially. It was like 19, I think. And so that was like such a big shift. And that was kind of like, I think the reason why I said that I don't know who I am, because I had no idea how big it was in the moment. Like I did, and it was terrible. And it was like, I lost all of my friends and my family for a bit. I mean, they all came around, of course, and we were able to get through it. But it was a really dark time, and I think that created this path of like figuring out who I was, and that's why I wanted to move closer into DC. And like I started going to clubs and being around gay people and meeting friends online, and I guess what is the normal sort of gay experience that a lot of people have.
So I think, well, first off, thank you for being open and willing to be vulnerable in this setting, in this space. And I think for people listening, a lot of people that might be like you and I, in just recognizing that many of us share similar stories in our lived experiences, specifically in and around childhood. What do you think those early defining moments, or even some of those more painful moments, were here to teach you in who you are, or in the discovery on your own journey to who you are?
Well, sorry for just jumping immely into the
No.
For everyone who's listening,
it's a safe space. That's what we're here. Yeah.
Like, hey, good morning. Here's my trauma. But yeah, I guess that's why we're here. So I think that like in that moment, I don't have like any bit of wisdom or experience, or it wasn't until I think much later that because I kind of like blocked it all off. And I created like, I guess you do this a lot with like trauma, and you kind of create like a barrier inside of your head, and it just protects it. And so I didn't touch it or deal with it. Even like when my family and I kind of like reconnected, and sort of everyone's human and everyone had to deal with it in their own way. But I think it wasn't until I moved to LA, because I was like just going, filling my time, working, you know, that's how I found hair. It was just this new opportunity, and it was creative and it was exciting. And I was good at it, kind of. It took a while, but I got good at it. And then just like friends and going out and just partying way too much. I never was with myself. I remember this moment that one of my assistants gave me this book, Be Here Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't read it because I was like, why would you say that I'm not present? And I was like, I just kept it for a while and didn't read it until much later. And then when I moved to LA, I all of a sudden had like no work and all this free time. And I think that's where I really started to kind of go back and figure out who I was, and or like realize that I had to figure out who I was, I guess.
Do you think in the time that you spent alone, like, were there any major revelations or like seeing parts of yourself that surprised you, or parts of yourself where you're like, oh, like this was my protector, or I developed this part of myself to protect myself from ever feeling certain feelings again? And then like, how did you work through unraveling or moving through those things, transforming them into partners in your experience versus demons, to say, in the closet, and how you navigate the world?
So I think that the moment where I had that shift, where it was like an awakening truly, was I was with my best friend Nadine, and we were in Joshua Tree, and I had done mushrooms a million times, a lot. And for a while it was like very hit or miss if it was like a good experience or not. And it was just like, because I was just so in my head and didn't know how to properly use them. And so we did a very intentional experience where we took an eighth and had an intention and journaled and just sort of like literally had this transcendent experience where I was able to zoom out on everything that was bothering me, everything that I was dealing with. And it was just like, kind of like the misuse of drugs, honestly, like, you know, the way that I partied, my drinking habits, the people that were in my life that I have felt for a while were not feeding me. And it was like this, like, beautiful, insane, like, unbelievable experience where I could see that there was this thread that was connecting every little thing that I had no idea. And it was like I could get that almost like hindsight 2020 perspective in the moment. And it was just so cool. And it like showed me, I was like, oh my God, there is so much more to this life that I have, like, I could have even imagined. And it was like truly life altering. And it was like that moment that Nadine at the time was actually also, it was as pivotal for her, but she had some practices already. So she already journaled. So that was like the start of me kind of like journaling and kind of like putting my thoughts on paper. Yeah. And then I think from there, it kind of started, I started working through making these changes in my life. I remember this one thing was I had a list of friends and people in my life, and people that I was like spending the majority of my time with, and people that I wasn't, and I was like looking at the order of them, and I started rearranging them. So then I started prioritizing the people that I felt like were like taking me to my next step. And it worked, and I did, and I just started meeting more people and having more experiences. And then, I mean, I don't know how I could just keep going. So I don't know if like I even answered your question actually.
No, you did. And where I actually wanted to go next, and I think we hear about this, people hear about like conversion therapy, they hear about similar experiences of people moving through that, but can you paint a picture for us, like coming through the other end of that experience and like seeing the light, being able to pick yourself up and move again? Like, what was that like for you in feeling, in expression, in thought?
So like back to like after it happened. Well, it was, I mean, it was obvious. Obviously, but it was probably the darkest time in my life. And I got really lucky because I met this girl online on roommates.com that I didn't even pay for, but she was local and she took me in and I was able to move in with her. And I just experienced, this like freedom of being around somebody who's not judging you for who you are. And so I think, I don't know, I don't think that I had any positive things. I think I like threw myself into drinking, partying, drugs, and nothing too crazy, but it was just like I like lost my job. I like thought I could sleep on an hour of sleep, and I like wake up after an hour of sleep, and I like kept missing a shift. And these people in my life were my friends, but like they were also going kind of in a direction, and I kind of had attached myself to these people because these are the only people who had accepted me at this point. And I'm so grateful for them at the time. But it was like we were all kind of heading down into that path, into like nightlife, not sleeping, just life, all about partying. And I think that I was only looking for like what's next. I was never like with myself. And so I think the moment that kind of started shifting is I had this feeling of I think I finally, because I think I went into like pick up, move, you have to like push through this, and I have to like have a place to live. I have to get a job. I have to, do all this because I was working at the Christian bookstore and all that stuff before. So it's just like I needed to like start something new. But when I had this really, really low, and it was after a really bad acid trip, but it's not the acid, it was just me. And I was so low that I like realized all the things that were going wrong in my life, and I missed my family. And so I think the first step for me was like letting go of the pride and my ego that I had, and I tried to start reaching back out to people. And so I think by kind of like slowly bridging the gap towards the people that kind of helped, they didn't hurt me, but that they sort of like were only human, and they kind of like had their own problems. And so like I stopped looking at them as inflictors of pain and people who shun me, and more as like they're still people and they're humans, and just like let's kind of start working on building that. So I think I think that was part of it. I think it's such a like a it's such a brain altering, like the way that you view yourself when you're in that moment, and that like the therapy, I mean, it was just so messed up. Like he's just like screaming and shaking a Bible over my head and telling me how wrong I am. And at some point you have to think for yourself and see like, why doesn't this sit well with me? Why does this feel wrong? And you have to kind of like say like, fuck you to everyone else, and just follow like your own heart. And I think once I started, I guess that would be the answer to your question. Once I started, like finding little moments of like listening to my heart and hearing like what I truly wanted, and like figuring that out, instead of like being brainwashed into like, this is how you think, this is how you act, this is what you should do and say. I think that's kind of like when things started moving.
What was your biggest takeaway from that part of your life, or
that
biggest takeaway? Yeah. And I had a similar experience across the street in a very different way, and I've shared bits and pieces of this, but yeah, I'm curious to hear like, what was your biggest aha looking at where you are now and having perspective on your experience, like looking back at like baby Winston or teenager Winston going through all of that, and again seeing this ray of light that you are now?
Like, what would I tell that person?
Yeah.
So beautiful. I would say to keep moving. I would say to, no matter how hard it gets, to continue to take a step forward. It doesn't matter in what direction, just move forward. Because I feel like if you stay too still and too stagnant in what's not working for you, then it becomes harder and harder to get out of it.
To move past that.
Yeah. So just like like one step in a direction that feels in alignment with yourself.
And I think too, building on that, so I personally know like how hard it can be at times to pull yourself out of a really dark place. And so also recognizing that you are not in it alone. There is totally help in your community and a therapist, in like the roommates.com situation that you had, like just finding that group, that community, or someone that is like, I see you. I see you, you're heard, you're valued, and using that as a source of inspiration to keep moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I mean, I had no idea if there was something like that. I mean, I came from such a like sheltered, Christian place that like I didn't know gay people. And I mean, that was when social media started. So like I met two friends that I still know today on MySpace. And
shout out to MySpace.
And it was like, and I think that's where I started building a community and network. So it's so cool, the idea of like something like this where you can hear like, I never knew of anyone who had that same experience. And it wasn't until recently that I've even like had people talking about it. So it's so cool to have something like this where you can connect and you're like, oh my God, me too. Okay, cool. Yes. I'm not crazy.
Yes. All right, so we will pivot a bit and we'll get to the lighter side of this conversation. But again, this is your moment. This is all about you. And I want to talk a little bit more about authenticity and what it means to express as your true self. And I think it's rare to see people like full butterfly wings, embracing that side of themselves, balance, masculine, feminine energy, but I see that in you. And so I'm really keen and interested in hearing what is your definition of authenticity. We hear it thrown around so much. Everyone's like, authentic, be your authentic self. Where you can be your authentic self. What does that mean? What is your definition?
Oh my gosh. It's so wild to think of like authenticity, because I think that I spent so long trying to play a character that when it didn't work out, all I had was just to like be myself. And
isn't that wild?
Yeah.
It's like you spend so much time like, oh, I think this is it. Yeah. And then when you're like, oh, like this is me. It's so simple.
Yeah, it's so simple. But it's also not, because I think because of the like self-doubt that was so like embedded into like my DNA, not my permanent DNA, but just like that period of time. It's just like, I would try to be myself, but I don't think that I was actually being myself, and it would happen in like glimpses, right? And I think if you continue to build it and just like, I don't know why it's so hard to be yourself. I don't know if it's just like our society or just like,
I think it's fear. There's so much fear of being accepted, fear of the other, fear of fear.
Yeah. I mean, when you're bullied and you're like taught to be a certain way that doesn't align with yourself, it's like you kind of like protect yourself. And so I think the more that I like am myself and then am almost affirmed by people in my life who love it, it just kind of like gives you more power to kind of, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, great. You love me for who I am. Yeah. I don't have to apologize for being crazy. Not crazy.
And I think that's a big thing for anybody that's listening that may be struggling or thinking about authenticity and what that means. That really is it, or that is a big part of it, is paying attention to the response and energies around you. Like, who are the people that are like, yes, you decided to wear that. I love that for you. You went with that hair color. I also love that for you. You're doing shit like this. I love that for you. Like, those are the people that you really want in your corner to help you build and grow and help those butterfly wings go and expand and take the world.
Yeah, you have to surround yourself by other people who are like-minded or have a open energy that like is welcoming and like supportive, like you said, because I think when I look back, the more that I've surrounded myself with people who are like that, the more in touch with myself I got, and the more I was able to connect with other people.
Do you know what, or one of the biggest realizations for me as well has been almost viewing my surroundings or the people around me as a mirror reflection of me. So it's huge. They play a really big part in your journey to self-discovery. And I think, like, personally for me, it's getting to this state of oneness. And we hear that, but it's being able to feel that sense of oneness with the people that are around you. And it's also recognizing that people come and go. They come and go, energies shift, energies change. And the more that you are yourself, it's like it's your antenna calling the right people to you, and people will come at the right time in your life. They will serve their purpose and they will go, and it's being able to accept that and to have the courage to continue moving on.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And I feel like the being self-aware, because you said like the people in you that are a mirror, I feel like being self-aware is so important, because on the journey to figuring out who I am, I feel like I often will have a conversation and I'll say something and I'll later be like, why did I respond like that? Or like, why did I react that certain way? And then kind of like sitting with that feeling or that thought and just like going, okay, moving forward, I definitely don't want to have that sort of reaction, and sort of like noting that and then working through that. And then that way you can kind of like continue to be in alignment with your truest, like highest self and be more authentic.
How do you express as your true self? What does that mean? What does that look like for you? Loaded question.
How do I express as myself?
I mean, even through your work, like, I feel like creativity has a big part to play in expression as your highest self. I think, or now I'm answering the question for you. Okay.
No, I mean, I want to hear your perspective, because I wasn't sure.
To me, showing up and expressing as your truest, most authentic self is owning you. Owning you. Yeah.
I think for me, it's not something, I don't think I do it consciously. I think that I notice that I feel the most like myself when I am centered and grounded, and I am kind of like doing a good, and hopefully this isn't too much like work based, but like kind of like in a flow where I'm constantly like recentering. And I think from there, then I feel like I'm not foreseeing things and things are flowing. And when that's happening, I feel more comfortable to kind of express myself authentically. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm tracking. Yes. Any tips, advice for people that may be in a dark place or backs against the wall, kind of thinking through like, well, why isn't this working for me? Or I am trying to be myself and I'm not seeing the right people around me, or I keep getting the short end of the stick, or whatever it may be, kind of in that headspace. Any tips or insights to help people move past that?
I feel like I kind of get in a version of this kind of regularly, in a way. Like, if I don't stay consistent, then I feel like I don't know if it's regress, but it's just sort of like energetically, I feel like I'm like vibrating lower. And so for me, what always ends up working is, and I kind of said this a little bit earlier, but is finding a way to move forward a little bit. So like if for instance, like, I know this is a little bit lighter, but like if I'm like inconsistent with working out and lifting and like being at the gym, just going back seems impossible. Yeah. And then, so what I always do is I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go. I don't care if it's the worst workout. I don't care if I just go sit in the sauna, if I just go stretch. But once I'm there, I'm going to do something.
Yeah.
And I never try to make it the best workout, right? So then the next time, the next day, it's already easier for me to get back to the gym. And then it's like, okay, well, I want to push myself harder than I did yesterday because I'm here. And so it just kind of like gets the ball rolling. It's the same thing with like, if I'm feeling lost or kind of like a little bit more depressed or a little bit more low energy or whatever it is, everyone has that intuition, that voice inside of themselves. And so oftentimes if you're in that place, you've probably not listening to it. And at least that's what I found. And so when you start to feel like, oh, I should do this, or I want to do this, or what if I did this? And then you don't listen to it, it gets harder and harder.
Yeah.
So just practicing like listening a little bit and doing just one little thing will help you. And it gets easier and easier the more that you do it.
And I think, so that is big. And I guess coming across the street and taking it one up to me in my mind, no one is exempt from those feelings. So the super lows or the super highs, I think we are all on this roller coaster of emotions. I think the trick is, how do we get better at breaking the loop? So being able to be like, oh, that is what I'm feeling. This is why I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
And can you look at it with a little bit of perspective and then hacking the emotion and coming out of it and recognizing that, okay, every day ends. How do I get, what tools or actions can I take to break this? And then you slowly start coming up. And then when you start dipping again, it's just the awareness, the quicker you are able to recognize what's happening, you can break the loop, and then coming out of that easier. And the more that you do that, it's like, instead of, whoa, fuck, here we go.
I like being across the street and one up. I like going over there with you. For me, like recently, like to your point, like of kind of coming up out of that and getting a bit better at it, or even getting more consistent, or having it be an easier process little by little. Breath work has been for me like the biggest change for kind of like when I am like being mostly consistent. Even I try to do it every day, but even if it's just like a couple times a week or whatever, that kind of keeps me, I feel like, from going too far down on the roller coaster, because it just completely resets your energy.
Oh yeah.
And even if it's 5 minutes, like there's this guy on YouTube that I like watch his videos and I do it, and it's just like every single time I'm like, how do I feel so peaceful? Every single time. So I mean, I think that's a great tip.
Is this Christini?
No, it's Breathe with Sandy.
Okay. I also like him. His energy is just like...
I love it. I love it so much. I do it before bed, but I'm trying to learn how to do it in the morning. But like, if you're driving to work and you need a tip.
Yes. Yes.
It's life-changing.
All right, Winston. Let's talk energy, vibes, and rituals.
Okay.
And you are all vibes. So how do you maintain your energy? How do you also stay so positive and bring this welcoming, warm feel to any space that you are in? Which is hard in a dark world that has this gloom of death and destruction at any given time when you turn on the TV.
Like more and more every day. Oh my God. Okay, so for me, my practices and rituals are kind of all over the place. And I was even a little nervous about doing this podcast because I was like, I feel like I haven't been as consistent, but I don't know why I do that to myself.
I think that's good. I think that being able to just say that is real.
Oh, yeah.
And we have our off days, months, weeks, years.
Yeah.
But again, it's what do you do? It's how do you show up? Coming back and then building from there.
Well, I've been doing it kind of not crazy long, but like since I said like 5-6 years, little bits by little bits. And so I think for me, journaling, yoga, meditation have been like the three kind of like more consistent practices that I think have like got me to lean into more of like some other rituals, like following the moon, and like what is
Moon,
like
planets, like I'm all
by
about
like
it.
finding alignment in what's going on with the moon cycles, because the energy affects you and you might not even realize it. And so like paying attention and like using that as a journal prompt to be like, okay, the energy, the new moon is in Libra or whatever it is, and just kind of like reading different articles on it, like studying like what it is, and then kind of going to yourself and go, what do I notice about myself that's happening right now? And every time I do that, I'm like, oh my God, I am on this like path of like clearing out all these people, or you know, whatever. And so then kind of like journaling with that, and then I am into crystals. I mean, I'm very like novice. I'm
There's
very
like 10 over there.
Yeah. I'm very novice with all this, but like it's just kind of like
Same.
it's fun. It's fun to like find things that ground you and connect you to yourself, but also the planets and the stars, and just like
Do you ever think like we're floating on a cold ass rock in the middle of nothing?
yeah. And it's so cool. And like how cool. Yeah, how cool that we were chosen to be here at this time.
Exactly.
In like the vastness of it all.
Wild.
Yeah.
Mind blowing.
And that's why I like astrology, because I mean, this is all just like it's cool to like find the patterns in things, right? The patterns in people, why you connect with people who circulate, like who is in your life, and like what are those patterns? Why are you connected to those people? I mean, I can go really far in, like I'm like, I like all of it. Like I'll get witchy with you.
Sign me up.
Yeah, you already Palo Santo displays, like what else can we do?
All right, Winston. Hot tips. Let's talk hair.
Okay,
let's
hair.
talk fashion. Hot tips. What are like key things? What are like the big no's or the yes, more of that you're seeing kind of generally as people are coming into your space? Yeah.
So if you're in Washington, D.C. area, I'm sorry, because there's nowhere to shop at all, unless you want to wear a suit. However, I have learned that so for me, I got really into like figuring out my style and expressing myself and shopping with clothes. I have a couple of friends who are very into fashion, and so they've thankfully have like reshaped my wardrobe and like gotten rid of a lot of things, and then kind of like helped answer questions on the way things kind of like fit. But I think like if you're interested in that, or if you also find that there's nowhere to shop, I mean, thrifting is for me like the best thing that you can do, because it's like, obviously it's more sustainable, it's way more inexpensive, it's so much more lived in and relaxed and feels like you've owned it for years, and you can find much more unique pieces that were made at a time where we were making things so much better. I usually go to Baltimore. There is so much in Baltimore, but like there's all kinds of like thrift around here. So I would say like that. As far as like style and things like that, like I think it's all connected in that I like working with people who are open to allowing me to kind of like share my perspective with them. And my perspective comes from asking questions. So just
what are those questions? Or what are those questions that you ask that people should be asking themselves as they're in the mirror? Like, is this cute or is this not cute?
I think figuring out your lifestyle.
Yep.
So I think with every person that I have in my chair, it's usually just like, what do you do on a day-to-day? How much time are you trying to spend doing your hair? How often do you want to come in? How much money do you want to spend? And then like, what are you trying to like project? What is the image what do you want people to think when they see you? And if you don't know, I'm happy to help you with those other questions, because I can narrow it down depending on how often you want to come in, how much money you're trying to spend, honey. But yeah, and just kind of like working with someone who I love working with hair. So like I don't really take on a lot of like male clients because everyone in DC, well, in this area, I love this area by the way. I hope it doesn't sound like I hate it. I do love DC. It's just a lot of like really short haircuts, and it's just very like
doesn't
super
push
clipped
the
and
boundaries.
and it just not for me specifically.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with it. I just like people who have hair to play with it. I like experimenting, letting things get a little longer, trying different products. Playing with your texture and just kind of like helping bring out your natural texture.
How'd you get to this color?
Well, I am very allergic to bleach, even though I'm a hairstylist. And my best friend Nadine, who I mentioned and I'll talk about all day long, bleaches my hair but does it off scalp.
Nice.
And then I recently had an event and one
Half selves. It was lit, by the way.
come to our party next time.
Yes.
I wanted to kind of like, I've always wanted to play with like a fashion color and do something different with my hair, and it's just been so fun as I've changed my hair, because I used to have really long hair for forever, and the shorter I've gone and the kind of maybe more edgy or alternative I've gotten with my hair, it's pushed my outfits and my clothes a little bit, and it's also kind of like progressing this personality, and it's like
Same.
Self-expression is so cool, and the more that you get to play with it, you like unlock this thing inside of you that you had no idea that was there.
Same. My hair was pretty long for a while, and I remember my first cut, and I was like, who is this?
Yeah. Like, damn.
Yes. All right,
I love your
Winston.
hair, Antonio.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. Time for some rapid fire questions.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
So, if you could master any skill instantly, what would it be?
Okay, the first thing that came to mind is reading tarot.
That's not a bad one.
I was thinking earlier that like I haven't done it in a while, and I was like, I'd love to like be able just to know everything.
All right. If you had a time machine, would you go to the past or the future, and why?
Future for sure.
Why?
I want to know what is coming, so I can see like, I don't know where I want to go. Maybe like 10 years, 20 years, and then just like figure out what is happening in this world that is going on right now, and then that way I can figure out my money better and where I'm going to live. Instead of just following the gentle prompts from the universe, I can kind of like have a head start and go further.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Actually, I would want to go to the past.
Oh, okay.
I feel like there's so much about my like heritage, upbringing that I'm still like, where do I come from? It would be really cool to like go back to like the 1800s or something like that, and not to be in it, but to observe from a distance, like, oh, like that's my family. That's pretty cool.
Ooh, I like that too.
Yeah. What's your hidden talent?
I don't know why, but this question always bothers me, and maybe it's because I don't have any hidden talents. But anytime I ask this, I'm like, damn it. I don't really have any like hidden talents.
Can you tap dance or
No, I mean
break dance? Or
okay,
anything?
so no. Full stop. No. However, like what I always say is I used to be in this like Christian hip hop dance group called Invasion, and we were like
surprise. Surprise.
So I don't have one. That's just more of like a fun fact.
Awesome. Okay. I love that.
Do you have a hidden talent? You have a lot of talents that I don't know about, I think.
Hidden talent.
That you can share.
Let's see. I don't know. Hidden talent.
It's a hard.
Oh, I can.
What can you do?
I'm like double jointed.
Okay, see, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Oh, I can whistle.
I can't whistle.
Okay, I don't want to do it because this is a very sensitive mic. But I can do like one of those party whistles. Or like, kids, dinner's ready.
What is your favorite childhood memory?
My favorite childhood memory. There are a few of them. I really loved doing magic. I got this magic set, and it was like I came with like a podium and all these tricks. And I used to do it in front of my family. I would do it when we had people visiting. I would do it on this, like, there was this green box in our neighborhood of Manassas, and I would like set up next to the green box, and I would do a show for the like kids in the neighborhood.
Ooh.
I wasn't very good, but it was just so fun. I loved performing.
Last question.
Okay.
Where can people find you if they'd like to connect and or sit in your chair, have a consult, learn more about you, your work, your art?
Okay. Well, okay. Well, I don't have a website at the moment, so there's this app called Instagram where you can find me at Winston.
How do you spell it?
OHSUREWINSTON.
What's the story behind the handle?
I just used to say, "Oh, sure," all the time, and I
love it.
And I have a professional account, which is at Winston Zachariah, ZECHARIAH.
Awesome. And we will be sure to include those in the show notes. Winston, any closing words for folks listening?
Thank you, Antonio, for having me. Thank you all for listening. I would just like to say to find a moment in your day that you can make somebody else smile.
I love that.
That's something my mom always taught me, and I love making people laugh and being silly, so just practice being yourself.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
okay?
Winston. I love that. Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Peace out, y'all.